Hi, in this ExpressXR tutorial, we will walk through the process of creating your own button quiz. A button quiz is an interactive survey tool for your experiments, but also allows you to create quizzes with arbitrary contents. For example, you can allow users to interact with the quiz items, you can play videos automatically, or you can stick to simple text quizzes or surveys. To get started, you will need to go to ExpressXR and open the ButtonQuiz Setup dialog, which will look something like that. The dialog features a textual description of what you need to do and why you need to do that. The dialog also lets you edit your created quiz, which are represented by a ButtonQuiz config, which can be loaded in the first section. ExpressXR already comes with a few quizzes which can be loaded here, but we will create our own button quiz, so we do not need to provide any value here. We can go to next, where we have to configure the basic rules of our quiz. For example, we can edit the quiz mode to either use single or multiple choice, select a question ordering, and the number of answers. Next, we can specify the types that are used in our quiz as questions, answers, and feedback if that should be given. We can select either objects, videos, text, or different types, which allows any object, video, or text. If we want to provide images or anything else, we can use object and create a game object which will hold, for example, an image. To keep it simple, in this tutorial we will only select text for both questions and answers. As I already said, the feedback is optional and can be prohibited, but we can also always provide a correct feedback, an incorrect feedback, or random feedback. The feedback type can be determined automatically by the correct answers, but can be chosen similar to the questions and answers by being an extra object. If we are happy with our quiz configuration, we can continue with the next steps, which will be creating the environment, for example, adding an ExpressXR rig and or creating a room for your exhibition. For creating rooms, we have a separate tutorial which you can access at the top right now. In our case, we already have a room, so we can skip that. And we can also skip placing furniture, as that is also optional. Next, we need to provide the quiz buttons that will display our answers, but also allow us to select them. In our case, we selected 2 answers, and thus we need to provide 2 quiz buttons within our scene. In case of multiple choice quizzes, you will need to provide another button of type multiple choice confirm button, which lets you log in your final answer. We could either use right click within our scene hierarchy and then go to ExpressXR and then go to buttons and quiz buttons and add either a quiz button or a multiple choice confirm button. But we can also select create buttons within our button quiz dialog, which will create 2 buttons and will place them next to each other. With that done, we can continue with placing the questioning displays, which are the displays which serve as a way to present the answers, but also the feedback if that is enabled. We only selected text, so we only need to provide a text label to render our questions and feedback. But if we say we want to display game objects, we would need to provide a position for that, and so on. Optionally, we can add an after quiz menu that is displayed after the quiz has completed, which lets you either restart or hide the button quiz. Again, we can make our lives easier by clicking create questioning displays, which will add a canvas which has a text where the questions are rendered to, and also a after quiz dialog which allows you to restart or close the quiz. What we now can do is scale and position those objects like that. And let's just hide the after quiz dialog and continue with our button quiz setup. Now we can add our questions, which in our case are, like I said, textual. So we can add a question, for example, how are you? And 2 answers. And use the checkbox on the right to select which option is right and which is wrong. To add or remove a question, we can use the plus and minus item on the bottom right. And now let's just add another question. Like that. And then we can continue when we have all our questions set up. As I said in the beginning, if we want to add more questions later, we can do that by reopening the button quiz and then selecting the button quiz config, which we will be creating right now when we click setup, to save the button quiz config to our assets by specifying a path and a name for it and then clicking save config. But we can also access the config by going to our created button quiz in the hierarchy and then going to the config property and either drag that into the button quiz config dialog, or, which is recommended, saving that if you missed it upon creation. In case the button quiz is just used for gamification, we are done creating the button quiz. If you want to use the button quiz for experiments, you can extract the data gathered by the quiz. In this case, select Next, which will guide you through the creation of a data gatherer, which will extract all the necessary information about the quiz. In case you are not familiar with the data gatherer of ExpressXR, make sure to check it out. We also have a tutorial for that, which should be accessible on the top right now. Again, the setup dialog lets you instantiate a data gatherer right away, or right click and go to ExpressXR and select, in this case, data gatherer, which will instantiate a game object with a data gatherer. For it to extract the values of the quiz, continue with your normal setup by selecting an export type and an export path. But instead of using the export triggers function or a periodic timeout, we will go to the button quiz, which has events for on quiz started, on answer given, and on quiz completed. As we want to have information about the answers, we will connect the on answer given event with the export new CSV line of the data gatherer game object. Like that. We will then need to add data bindings. We can include timestamps just to know when an answer was given, and then add another data binding. Leave the export column name blank and select the button quiz as target object. Then select under the button quiz the function get full quiz CSV values. This will automatically set the export column name to multiple columns, which will be all the information that are gathered by the button quiz. These include which answers were given and how long the user took to answer it after the question was displayed. This will wrap up the button quiz creation process, and we will jump into Unity just to have a look at what the button quiz can do. In the VR, let's have a look at the quizzes from the exhibition export scene that comes with ExpressXR. And as you can see, here we have a rather textual quiz about the University Tübingen. And we can now select an answer. For example, we think that in Tübingen philosophy isn't taught, but that is wrong, so the button will turn red. We also have the option for displaying differing amounts of answers. In this case, we only have 2. The previous question had 4 answers. So now we can select 11 we see 11 was correct and the button turned green. So let's have a look at the next quiz. This one utilizes interactables, and as you can see, we can grab the interactables from the outside, which is an expansion of ExPresS that allows for more natural grip, and we can let it go and it'll retrieve the object after a short while. In this case, the interactables have different weights, so we can select one, and luckily we selected the correct one. The last thing to show you is a video quiz, and as we do not want to start videos prematurely, we can add another button to start a quiz, and then we can see a video. And after the video is done, we see a question and we have to select the right answer. In this case, the answer was wrong, and we see the correct answer as another video.